Dear reader, allow me to introduce you to my book. Though it might at first appear like many books you've come across, it is far from ordinary. You may, therefore, have some misunderstandings about its nature. The story that awaits you has not been fully told. In fact, its conclusion is not yet known, even to myself. It is in that way that my book is special. It is in that way that you are special. Without you, there is no story.
Hi everyone, and welcome to my review for Beacon Pines. Beacon Pines is wonderfully presented with a cute storybook aesthetic and some excellent music. But what really stands it apart is its superior storytelling and elegant use of language. Join me as I run through some of the highlights of this beautiful game and see why this should be on your wish list if you are a narrative lover. Luca Van Horn has had a difficult childhood. He lost his father when he was 6 years old, and his mother mysteriously disappeared without trace not long afterwards. His grandmother looks after him now, but those events, even 6 years on, still play on his mind daily. Living in Beacon Pines, a small sleepy town in the countryside, is nice, but times have been hard ever since the foul harvest hit and the founder of the town died. His best friend Rolo does his best to distract Luca from his thoughts with as much mischief and imagination as they can both muster. Their secret lair, affectionately dubbed Mission Control, is their go-to place to hatch up plans, games, and just to behave like inquisitive children. It isn't long before the meddlesome ways land them in a spot of bother, and suddenly events are revealed that have a profound effect on all of their lives. Beacon Pines is a choices matter narrative adventure that plays out a lot like a visual novel, but has the freedom of player movement and with different endings. Playing as Luca Van Horn, you control the character on screen as he travels around the town, talking to inhabitants and completing short quests he has been assigned. The focus switches between town life and their conversations and happenings to the storybook, where the narrator introduces events, characters, and provides lore and background to the story. When controlling Luca, you walk around the town and talk to any inhabitant if a speech bubble is present, and a graphic of each character appears with their conversation. Text can be skipped or the pace controlled by your keyboard or controller, making text flow at a pace that suits you. Actual conversations are not voiced, but have different sounds mimicking speech and differentiating between characters. The town itself is not that big, and you'll often be asked to meet a particular character in a certain place. It doesn't take that long to memorise the town and know where a character will be hanging out. They're usually frequenting the same places, like marketplace stalls, shops, or amenities like libraries. You can enter certain buildings for a change of scenery. There is no map, quest finder, or hints, though they're not really needed considering the size of the town.
This is an important turning point. The first time where your charms will change the course of fate. And currently, we only have one suitable charm at our disposal. Have no fear, we can always return later using the Chronicle once we find more charms. Rolo froze as Roxy took a step toward him, cracking her knuckles. Luca knew he had one chance to save his friend from being dragged home. In the past, he found the best way to deal with an enraged Roxy was to be a little chill.
If a special event occurs, we are thrown back to the book where the narrator analyses the situation and may ask us to use a charm to affect events. You collect charms as you progress, and these may be picked up through encounters with characters or by interacting with certain objects. If you investigate everything, and why wouldn't you, they will pop up quite frequently. They are just simple everyday words that can be used to change a sentence on the storybook and send you down a different narrative. If one of these choices results in death, and sometimes this can happen hours later, you are asked to return to any of these turning points and pick a different word to see how that turns out.
The end? I probably should have warned you about this. There are many paths that our story can take. Most will end in tragedy, but don't let that discourage you. We will find the ending that this story deserves. I just know it. From here on out, a charm will have a check mark when it's been used to its full potential at a given turning point. Now, let's try something different. In the past, he found the best way to deal with an enraged Roxy was to be a little shit.
In my experience, you mostly only have between 1 and 3 charms to use, but there were rare occasions when I had more. Beacon Pines is a very enjoyable adventure if you are a fan of reading visual novels or just a decent story, told in an unusual and entertaining way. It is a gentle experience with lots of heartwarming encounters, camaraderie between friends, and tons of mischief. But there is also a darker side, with reflections on loss, greed, and ambition. I am not one for copious amounts of text, and although Beacon Pines does have a lot of text, it is always kept short, punchy, and entertaining, and I found myself happily following events as they unfolded on the page, like a writer penning his story for the first time. The actual writing is wonderfully written, with exciting and flamboyant use of language which flowed expertly as to provide a riveting read. Often sombre, often exhilarating, the tones were masterfully set to provide the right mood at the right time. A great deal of this was to do with the narrator, who voices the words as they appear on the page. Spoken with feeling and gusto, she transforms the words on the page and paints pictures in your imagination.
Lucas sat in the dark, tracking the sound of Rollo's footsteps as he ran. 1, 2, 3. He pressed his ear to the dumpster wall, straining to hear Rollo's footsteps as they faded away. 15, 16, 17. He tried not to think about the contents of the dumpster as he counted. 35, 36, 37. The thick stench made it hard to breathe. Screw it, that's long enough. Luca carefully lifted the lid and peered out. Nothing. No sign of Rollo. No sign of the man in the yellow suit. Time to haul ass. Luca clambered from the dumpster, stumbling to his knees. He was up like a shot and running, sprinting toward home as fast as he could. Beacon Pines flew by, blurred by the tears that welled up in his eyes. He wouldn't remember getting home at all that night. Throwing his front door open, storming up the stairs to his room and surrendering to sleep almost as abruptly as he hit his pillow.
The artwork is sublime too, with a storybook feel and a whimsical use of direction. The pages felt alive and effortlessly flitted from the book back to the characters and their roles within the town environment. With an outstanding use of music, which was noticeably impressive in many scenes, it just rounded off a superior storytelling experience. The only minor gripe I had with the whole package was the use of the choices matter part of the affair. I haven't conclusively decided if it added anything to the overall package, and I think at least another play is required to ascertain whether it is a gimmick or cleverly designed. Initially, it left you at a dead end. I don't think there is any way you can complete the story without dying and returning to an earlier part of the story to try again. I might be wrong, but I didn't get that impression, mainly because you don't have enough charms to affect events at that stage, and it takes a while to collect enough to even attempt traversing a different route. I probably died 4 or more times in my playthrough and was often flung back a few chapters to try a different word that may or may not affect events. Sometimes, if you own enough charms, there were a few different words you could use, and some may take you to another dead end. I don't mind it too much, however, as each time you do start again, the story cleverly moulds around events you have already experienced, and it actually provided more background lore, character interaction, and a deeper involvement in the narrative. It gave the story and characters a weird three-dimensional feel, where lots of slightly different happenings were occurring at the same time, but culminating in roughly the same ending, no matter what path you took. denying that Beacon Pines is a superior storytelling experience that should appeal to both children and adults. The imaginative use of presentation, along with memorable characters and a superb narration, will keep you hooked on the story and fall in love with its charm. Often I would marvel at the poetic and elegant storytelling as the words gradually revealed themselves on the page. Even though the aesthetics are cute and fluffy, the story does contain some dark and sinister themes, but nothing graphic or disturbing, more eerie in nature. The option to include choices which can drive the story in different directions was an interesting addition, but sometimes it threw you backwards in the story plot, which was a bit disheartening and a little disorientating. It didn't provide any real challenge, but it does add replayability and provide slightly different ending. Okay, that's all for my review on Beacon Pines. My next review will be for Trail Out, an arcade racing game with destructible environments and vehicular chaos in single player or split screen co-op. If you like games like the Flat Out series or Wreckfest, then be sure to check that one out by clicking the notification bell. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate a like and subscribe, and feel free to make any comments or suggestions in the section below. Thanks and see you soon.